Welcome to the bold analysis, ladies and gentlemen. Did you watch William Samoei Ruto, the president-elect, first interview with the global media house CNN the day before, yesterday? I watched part of it, and something came out there very interesting. That is what I want us to look at in this analysis. Very contradictory in its nature. And I mentioned during the campaign analysis that after the results are announced and Kenyans get to know their president, there is a need for us to keep track of what was said, what is being said now, and what is being done. Because I think there is need for Kenyans to know what exactly is happening in this country. Did you know that Russia is one of the biggest grain exporters in the world? Unlike Ukraine, which is number one in that, which is number 5 of the largest. But the biggest grain exporter in the world is Russia. And during just from somewhere in February, when war broke out in Russia, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, of course, later on it stretched and it had some adverse effects in the other parts of the world. And because it being the largest grain exporter, President Uhuru Kenyatta were telling Kenyans that the cost of living that is affecting the grain and other projects and other products that are being exported in the country is attributed to world tensions, including the Russia war. But that did not sit well with the Kenyans. So yesterday, in a CNN interview by a journalist that I can only pronounce the first name, Christian Amanpour, while interviewing Deputy President, he asked William Ruto a question. And he was asking William Ruto's response. What is his response to United African Union's Commission's chair, Musa Faki, who insisted that the war in Russia was not to blame for the grain shortage in Africa. That the African Union Commission chair have said that whatever is happening in Russia do not have adverse effects in Africa, and so Africa should not blame whatever is happening abroad. So this journalist decided to put this question to William Ruto and to ask William Ruto what is his response to the position by the African Union Commission chair. And if you listen to it, Ruto changed his tone and said that it is not time to blame other people for, or rather to blame other countries for whatever is happening, but he's going to work with, he's going to cooperate with the global leaders to make sure that the cost of living is brought down. And in that interview, Ruto acknowledged that part of the problems that we are going through, especially the cost of living, could be triggered by the global tensions. This is a departure from the campaign trail statement where the president-elect was believing that whatever was happening in the country was the making of the handshake government and had nothing to do with the global tension. So I want you to listen to this clip because I captured this clip. This is after the president, I think, announced the Unga subsidy, and the price of Unga was to drop to 100. I think it dropped maybe at some point to 100. And the Kenya Kwanza team went to campaign I think that is in the coast. So in that campaign trail, they were so categorical, and of course it became part of their campaign slogan that the problem was President Uhuru Kenyatta, outgoing President Uhuru Kenyatta, and Raila Amolo Odinga. So I wanted to listen to that, because in the middle of that contradiction, you then ask a question, yourself the question, why now? Listen to that.
Mmesikia rais akisema ati huyu mtu amekuwa akimshauri. Sasa alikuwa anamshauri aongeze bei ya unga. Na ndio mimi nataka niwaeleze ndugu zangu, tusicheze karata na maisha yetu. Sijui kama tunaelewana. Tuko pamoja. Matatizo ya hawa majamaa ni kwamba hawajawahi kulala njaa hata siku moja. Hawaelewi ati kulala njaa ni nini.
Badala ya viongozi kuwa wanaketi kusema tutasuluhisha namna gani, jameni, tutasaidiana namna gani, wengine wanaenda huko kuinsight wananchi. Angalia hii bei imepanda, uliza Uhuru. Yani mimi Uhuru niko Ukraine, mimi ninafanya nini huko? Jameni. Mimi COVID nilikuwa huko kulea kutoa mimi.
Si Raila amekuwa akiendesha serikali na Uhuru Kenyatta. Si walisema mimi sina maana. Saa hii si mambo imeharibika.
Wakati wale watu wa handshake wamefukuza William Ruto kwa serikali, wakashikana mikono, mambo yote ndio imeharibika Kenya hii. Tunavyoongea sasa hivi, bei ya sukari iko juu, bei ya mafuta ya kupika iko juu.
Msifikiri ya kwamba hizi vitu zimepanda tu kwa bahati mbaya. Ni maksudi. Hawa jamaa wamepanga kwa sababu wanatengeneza pesa. Ni maksudi, wameharibu serikali, wakaharibu mipango kwa sababu ya mambo ya handshake na BBI.
Now guys, I need to say one thing. That one thing you can take from the mantra of the President-elect William Samoei Ruto is that in the eye of adversity, even though he looks ahead and sees that there is just a lot of work that is needed being on the state of the country, but he's trying to speak more of being progressive in what really needs to be done. And with good legislative and with good legislative policies and administrative restructuring, maybe he can achieve something, and people can really see what was promised in the campaign trail. You know, you also need to be very optimistic. Now, that question was very interesting to me. And one thing that you can see why this contradiction is emerging now is because of global concerns over William Ruto's foreign policy. Let me give you a good example. In the same interview, one of the questions that CNN journalist asked was about his position on deporting the Chinese. And yes, even though he became so economical with the words, and not to make sure, just making sure that does not speak ill about about the Chinese issue. That question was just trying to look at his foreign policy. One of the global leaders that has also congratulated him was, I think, Emmanuel Macron, the French president, and I think United States Secretary of State, I think, also. Then Russia came last, not Russia, let me say China, but I think there have also been another message from Russia, if I'm not wrong. So, one thing you can see is the global leaders are really scrambling for the Kenyan space because of other interests. And these interests range from the commercial interest to policy, and there's just a lot of stuff that comes in this. One thing that has not been clear in William Ruto's manifesto is his foreign policy. And I can tell you that what that journalist wanted to assess, that question, it was not intended to Kenyans, to ask on behalf of Kenyans on how William Ruto is going to address the cost of living. That question addressed, or rather asked, with that global news outlet was just trying to peruse William Ruto's foreign policy. We will have to revisit this in maybe our analysis perhaps tomorrow and maybe another day. But I can tell you that that is one thing that is there. And I'll be so keen to look at who is going to be appointed in charge of the foreign affairs. There are rumors that that appointment might go to someone on Azimio la Umoja or on Kalonzo Musyoka's side, perhaps even Kalonzo Musyoka. That has also emerged. But you know, we keep on insisting that whatever is said at campaign trail, and that's what Kenyans sometimes don't get, is purely politics. It's normally purely politics without non-scrutinized policy interventions. And how they can be achieved. The framework of implementation. Sometimes they're not normally put when people talk in the campaign trail. And while it was convenient, politically convenient, to gain mileage and to win the seat, to woo the voters, to endear to the voters by pushing the cost of living in the head of the outgoing President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, it is now convenient, it might be important to say the truth and to twist this because of understanding of the state of the economy. And one of the things that we mentioned, and this is true, that the fact that William Ruto was not in government, fully in government, he did not really make his pledges on reality check. Remember, the manifesto was more of expenditure, but Kenya is a service economy. When you talk to people, what do I do? Takwambia we fungua hoteli, we fungua kinyozi, you run Uber. You know, those are services. Kenya is not, we've not really embraced the production economy. And it can take this to banker. If someone is listening to the economists, who are people who are going to help us implement the plan, they should, they should focus more on making Kenya be a production economy, because we are much of service providers and service consumers and products consumers. Now, I think why this contradiction is coming is because now this is the time to manage the public expectations that were raised way far at the campaign trail. And managing those expectations is, you just make sure you must be very economical. I want to say that there are a lot of things that people expected because of what was said at the campaign trail. It will be so unfortunate that that is not the reality. And with reality on ground, you do what can be done, you achieve what can be achieved within a specific time frame, then the rest you make public, you manage public expectations. Managing public expectations is at the center of this, because otherwise people need, the Kenyan voter, the people who embraced hustler ideals, and I am not one of them, the people who embraced hustler ideals were promised heaven here in earth. And so there needs to be intervention so that people do not, from the first few days in government, that government do not lose its popularity. Ladies and gentlemen, that is my bold analysis on this contradiction. Remember, at Unga, it was like Uhuru anaongeza ili wapate kura, and the problem is Uhuru and Raila handshake and all that. But now, the reality is with us.